All right. Well, I am super excited to chat with my friend Whitney Owens. I believe this is the second time you've been on the podcast. Is that correct?
That's right, Daniel, and I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here. And so, just a shout out to Whitney. She has done amazing work, and I've kind of watched her just grow and change and pivot over the last year or so. But I just think that you're doing great work, just helping folks build their faith based practice, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. And you're also pretty awesome on Instagram. I'm always impressed by the dance moves and funny things that you do, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I have moves like that. So kudos to you, Whitney. It's always fun
Oh,
watching you.
thank you. Something that Allison Pereira, actually, she's Abundant Practice,
Yeah,
on her Instagram. So I was watching this and she did this video and basically said, if you're not having fun doing it, then don't do it.
that's
And I was
good.
like, oh, that's so good. I'm gonna really embrace Instagram because I love it. It's just the technology that was getting to me. And now I'm just having
Yeah,
fun with it. And so yeah.
that's good. It's inspiring me because I know that sometimes I can take myself way too seriously, and I think that especially since starting like my own business, like I start to take myself too seriously. And actually was just thinking about this recently. I was like, I used to be just a silly, funny guy, and then like I think I'm just like there's something I need to like tap into there and just kind of just let myself be a little bit more free. So thank you for that inspiration.
Well, glad to do it. And if you ever want to make some reels, just let me know and we can make those happen.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, for those who don't know who you are, so let us know a little bit about who you are and what do you do to help private practice owners grow their
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, definitely happy to do so. I am Whitney Owens. I'm located in Savannah, Georgia, so right near the beach, which is really nice in a beautiful historic city. I have two girls, ages 9 and 6, and a husband who is a pastor. So we have an interesting dynamic, pastor and therapist, interesting
Mm,
conversations for sure.
yeah.
I own a group practice here. There are 10 plus therapists. That's how I say it now. They come and go, right? So 10 plus therapists, group based, private pay, faith based as well. And then as I've grown my practice, I just started realizing there really weren't people out there specifically helping counselors that wanted a faith based practice.
Hmm.
And so I embraced it and I moved forward in it and I've loved it. I've been helping faith-based practice owners for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. Um, so yeah, and we can kind of dive into kind of what that is if you want, like what a faith-based practice is for your listeners.
Yeah, let's start there. That's a good place to start.
Yeah, yeah. Because when I say that, a lot of people are like, what does that mean? So faith-based can mean any faith. It doesn't necessarily have to adhere to a certain one. I get a lot of questions about that. Now, me within my scope, I adhere to a Christian faith, and that is what I do with my consultees, and that's kind of what I specialize in. But I just want to encourage people that you can have a faith-based practice as a Muslim therapist, as a Buddhist therapist, as a Jewish therapist, the whole nine
Yeah.
yards. Um, and it really just means that you have a business and faith impacts the way you run your business, right? So a simple way that you could think of this is like Christians typically believe that they need to give a tithe, right? When
Hmm.
within the church or whatever. And so sometimes they do that in their business. They feel like that influences how they manage their money and they want to give to different areas or give back to the church through the way they run their business. That's just one example of how faith is influencing a business decision. So, like, it might influence the way you hire, it might influence the way you work with clients, and the way that you serve your community.
Good. Thank you for that. That was super
Mhm.
helpful. It was super helpful to me because I've often actually wondered like how does Whitney actually define that and that them and I know that sometimes people get turned off if they see language around just Christian faith and they might be Jewish faith. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, so it's so interesting that you just mentioned that because that was a real struggle when I first started was how do I
Mm,
talk about this? And then when I talk about Christianity, even that word has a lot of emotions and thoughts and trauma
right.
for people. And so it's funny because the very people I was trying to serve, like Christian counselors, actually were kind of put off by me because they
Mm,
didn't like that terminology, So the
yeah.
very people I was trying to serve, like I was struggling to like verbalize what it was for them and then it's just really interesting, but as I've grown, I think that my I'm getting my message out there in lots of different ways. But I actually
Yeah.
don't even use that term Christian very much anymore because I feel like it has a whole connotation, which is kind of where I go back to the whole faith-based idea.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Okay. Well, let's move from there and let's talk a little bit about, when we were discussing like what should we chat about today, or, you said that you'd love to talk about things that you need to know before starting a faith-based practice, or just kind of like in general, because I know that so many times, and I mentioned to you, I've had these conversations with my wife, especially when she was first starting out, as people coming from a Christian faith as well. It's like, how do I start this? How do I mention that I can practice from a faith-based or Christian faith-based perspective without alienating other people, and there's sort of that fear of niching down. What's your starting point for those sorts of questions?
Yeah, well, you're asking all the right questions. So those are actually the questions I bring to people when they're trying to figure that out. You've got to decide, first of all, what faith background you want to adhere to, right? And then figuring out how much of that do you want to integrate into the way that the clinical part, right? The way we see
Hmm.
our clients, and then the way you run your business, because those are two different delineations there. And then whatever you do decide, being able to market and brand, which you're an expert in, with your website design and things like that, being able to convey that through your website, because that's where a
Hmm.
lot of people are going to find you. So to give some examples here, and I'll use the Christian perspective because that's what I adhere to. You can have an overt Christian practice
Hmm.
or maybe a covert Christian practice. And so, an overt Christian practice, you would have a name and you would have a logo that very clearly defines you as Christian. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to give an example of a place in town that's called Barnabas.
Hmm.
And so that would make sense. Like Barnabas is a biblical figure. He was known for being an encourager. And so they are an overt Christian practice and they meet the needs of those types of clients. And that's what they're passionate about serving.
Yeah.
Another place in town called Five Stones, and that's got this biblical reference to it. But then some practices may not want to be so overt because it does limit the types of clients that will come in your doors. And so for me, I love working with faith-based clients, but I also really like working with clients that don't have a faith-based background, or maybe those that do, but they have so much trauma or hurt, they probably wouldn't have gone to a
Hmm.
Christian, quotes here,
Yeah.
Christian counselor. So even though I am a faith-based practice, I don't scream that from the rooftop. So don't have it really in my branding very overtly. It's more under the scenes. So it's
Yeah.
called Water's Edge Counseling, and water's a place of renewal. That's a biblical thing, baptism, things like that. And the scallop shell is our logo, which is from the Camino de Santiago. And so a lot of people don't even know what that is. But if you do know what that is, you're probably a Christian or you're Catholic. And so you're going to see that.
Hmm.
So nothing on our website even mentions that we're Christian, except I have a Christian counseling page, which we could chat about that if you want.
Yeah.
But people go to our website and they think we're Christian if they're Christians because they see that language. But people who are
Right.
not faith based, they don't notice that at all. So I can
Right.
kind of meet the needs of both.
Yeah, and that's a good balance. And that's kind of typically how my wife has kind of operated her practice. She actually is even less overt. She's kind of more on the covert side, but even less overt than what you just described, in that she has it mentioned, I think, on her homepage or maybe in her like about profile, her bio on her website. But we were even just talking last night about how I think you could probably add a Christian counseling page to her website, because more on the SEO side of things, and so that somebody who's searching for Christian counseling specifically will likely not go to her website or find her website, because she doesn't really have it represented yet on her website. So that's just kind of something for folks if they're thinking about, building their website and what to put in there, if they're going to take that more covert approach. Having that singular landing page that's going to capture that keyword and capture those ideal clients is a good idea.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And we created that page not all that long ago because I was really worried that people who were not Christian would see it and turn away, but it really hasn't changed as far as our dynamic that I'm seeing at the practice. And then we started doing some Google ads semi recently because I have
Hmm.
several new therapists, and Christian counseling is one of our keywords. And I've been
Yeah.
amazed. It's, I think, the second highest of all the words that we've been getting hit for. So I just think that
Yeah.
speaks to the importance of people are looking for that.
Yeah, people are definitely looking from that. We've seen that from our SEO clients, and yeah, just some of the clients that we've worked with. And actually, my wife's business partner, who also operates out of the same building, she has a Christian counseling page, and I've seen the traffic on that because we built her website. So I'm kind of like, hey, Liz, I think it's time for you to put this on your website and get a little bit more traffic there. But she is kind of taken the approach of, with her marketing early on, just creating some good referral sources with local churches. So she is seeing people who are from a Christian background or Christian faith from time to time. But as far as her website goes, it's a little bit more general. So she's definitely not excluding people, but she's on that covert side of things.
Definitely.
Yeah. So tell me, since we kind of jumped onto that landing page about Christian counseling, tell me a little bit about the types of things, the type of, content that you typically would want to have on a page like that.
hmm Yeah, I think it's important to, if you are going to be overt, even before you get to that point, is doing that in your messaging on your homepage, because people are coming there and they're wanting to know about your practice. And then as far as on your actual Christian counseling page, maybe talking about the importance of faith within therapy, why we want to integrate faith, and ways that it's a resource for clients. I think this is something that a lot of therapists don't think about, and this is for anyone listening, faith-based or not. Like, faith is a resource for clients. It brings community, it brings meditation, it brings hope in bad
Mhm.
situations, forgiveness for, forgiveness is a teaching that we do with our clients all the time. It's definitely a teaching within the Christian faith and a lot of faith traditions. So pulling in some of those into the conversation on your page, I think could be super helpful.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of decisions that you have to even make before you get into this marketing stuff. Just to kind of back up our conversation a little bit,
Mhm.
um, how do you approach someone who maybe they haven't even started their website yet? They're like just in like those first stages of building their practice. Like, what are some of the questions that they need to kind of wrestle with, or just kind of understand before they even dive into all that marketing stuff?
Mhm. Yeah, it comes down to the whole which faith, tradition, and how overt or covert do you want to be, and then
Mhm.
creating your name and your branding surrounding that. And you know this with SEO, if you can get some keywords in your name, that's even
Mhm.
better, right? So, for example, if you want to be overt, then call yourself, Savannah Christian Counseling or whatever the case may be. Like, if you put your city and Christian in there, that's really going to be helpful for you.
Yeah.
And then I think, like, really allowing your messaging to spin from that's your branding. And so everything within your website, within the marketing, within the way you talk about your business comes from the way that you created it from the very beginning. For me, something that I think's been super helpful as I'm not as overt about it is my messaging that I give to like a regular school that's not a faith affiliated school
Mhm.
counselor, that's going to be very different than what I give to a private Christian school counselor. So being able to create messaging that still conveys your brand and what you do, but also tailoring it to the types of people that you're talking to.
Yeah. Mhm. That actually reminds me of one of our clients last year. We worked on her website, and I think you know her, Mandy Penny.
Yeah.
She's in Abundant Living Rome, and so she is definitely an overt Christian faith-based practice. But she took that approach. She put Rome in her name, which is the town, city in Georgia that she's in. Which I've never been there, but I don't believe it's a very large town. And so she came to us, and she had a Squarespace website, and she wasn't doing a lot of the stuff that we actually recommend for SEO, but we got her there eventually. But she didn't have specific landing pages for all of her services, so we helped her build that out and all that stuff. But she was ranking for so many keywords because she took that approach of abundant living, talking about Christian faith, and I think she's actually focused on Christian women until recently. She just hired a male therapist, so she's like, "Oh wait, we need to change the website because it was very focused on feminine brand and sort of that stuff." So like she's even growing with this thing and reaching more people. But it was amazing to see like when she took that approach of like putting the city in her name, being overt. And that really like got even just her homepage ranking for a lot of different keywords, like Christian anxiety counseling, Christian couples counseling, because she mentioned that on her homepage in a specific city with the name and the brand. So that gave her a really good foundation. So we built out all those pages specific to those services, and she was able to rank for those pretty quickly. So it's super helpful when you make those decisions early on. That really can help establish your brand.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. She's pretty special. I actually met her at a conference here in Savannah for the LPCA.
Okay, cool.
And we met years and years ago. And then when she was ready to really build up her group practice, she reached out and got to reconnect with her. So it just goes to show you the importance of like all those connections sometimes can really take you down the road when you don't realize they will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Cool. Well, what else do people need to know? Is there anything else that you want to give folks who are thinking about starting a faith-based practice, or they have one but they're feeling like it maybe doesn't, I don't know, represent the way that they want it to represent?
Yeah. I think it's important to know that it's your business, so you can do whatever you want. Like
Nice.
I think there's a lot of rules out there that you feel like, oh, I got to do it like this person, or this is the course I
Yeah.
took has to be this way. And definitely following some of those things is helpful. But like if you start doing your messaging and it's not going well after a while, I mean, consistency is important. But if you're doing it and you're like, this just doesn't feel like me, that's
Hmm.
okay. And like you can change it, you know?
Yeah.
And so make your business something that makes you happy, that you can enjoy. And then also, as you experiment with different things on your website, watch your numbers. Like, and you're
Yes.
probably going to agree with me. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
how many people don't watch their numbers when I say,
Yeah.
well, how's that page doing? And how many people are calling and how are they hearing about you? Like, a lot of people don't track all that.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you're tracking all that stuff and you're going back and saying, is this method that I'm using working? So this is not a faith-based example, but for example, there was a magazine in town, the Savannah magazine. It's what all the rich people get. And like, I was like, we have got to get in that magazine. That was like a goal of mine. So then we had an opportunity to get in the magazine. I had to pay, I think, $800, which at the time I did not have a very big practice. That was huge for me.
Hmm.
And so I paid the money. We had a photographer come, blah, 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 blah. And guess what? We didn't get any clients from that.
Oh.
Right. And there are other people that I talk to that'll say, oh my gosh, like we did this publication and got all these clients. It's a great thing to do. So, all that to say is don't just do something because someone else is doing it or you think it's a really good idea. Like, track if things are working. So, we
Yeah.
get published a good bit or I get on the local news, but it really hardly ever leads to clients. And if it does, it's just two or three. By the amount of time and energy I'm putting into it, I've learned
Yeah.
Google is where it's at. So then I'm tracking my numbers. Well, Google's working or this Christian counseling page is working. So I'm going to keep putting my time and energy into that.
Yeah, that's really good. And I'll just say amen to that. Like there's plenty of people that I speak to, and when I'm consulting with folks, when they're just when they're thinking about working with us to work on their online presence, is one of the first questions I ask is, well, where's your traffic at now? And where do you want your traffic to be in 12 months? And I'd say the majority, or at least half of the folks I talk to are like, I have Google Analytics, but I just never look at it, or I don't know what I'm looking at, which I totally get. It's overwhelming. The numbers can be scary, but the numbers are the facts, and that's what I love about SEO is you can make these changes and you could see the impact, whether that's negative or positive. So then you can pivot and you can change. Like you said, you tested the ad and it didn't work. We have an episode coming out in a few weeks where I interviewed somebody who was talking about how he did get on news stations and stuff like that, and it resulted in a lot of business for him. So
Oh, wow.
just,
That's awesome.
just again, like what you said, like doing what other people are doing is not always going to work for you. And so I love that, just that idea of just trying things, tracking it, and changing. Because again, like you said, it's your business.
Yeah. Well, the best part about being on the news is the links that you get. So
Yeah.
if you ever do get interviewed, you tell them to put your website on their page
Yep,
with the
absolutely.
link.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I tell people all the time, because backlinks is one thing that people do a lot of work on their website for SEO, but they kind of forget about getting links from other websites. That's super helpful. So
Yeah.
podcasting, guest posts, being interviewed, it's great.
Definitely.
Takes
Yeah.
work. Takes work though. It's a lot of like relationship building.
Yes. Oh, well, I actually love that part.
Well, there you go. For me, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I'd rather just write this like crazy long article and put it on my website and get traffic that way. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So speaking about relationship building, I think another really important thing to say here is the importance of having a community while you're building your practice,
Mm,
because it can be lonely. And I especially feel that for faith-based practice owners. So, you get into a mastermind and you might feel like you can't talk about your faith, which is an important part of your work, right? And that's how
yeah.
I felt for a long time, because when I was in a mastermind and growing my business, it wasn't led by someone that was talking about that stuff, or the people in the group weren't really talking about that stuff. So then I felt
Yeah.
embarrassed or uncomfortable because it was an important part of my life.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
just to say, like, finding other people that you can talk about that with. And then when you have unique challenges around faith and business, like, you have a place to talk about that with. Just yesterday, one of the girls in our Wise Practice membership community, she emailed me and she said, something about going on in her business. And then she said, I went on a retreat and realized that I'm not letting God be a part of the work I'm doing enough. I
Mm,
was like, yes, like, this is so cool that she emailed and said that, like, and that we
yeah.
have a place where we can do that. And I've had some people in our Wise Practice community just very freely talk about God and Jesus. And I'm like, wow, like, it's just so cool to have a community where you can feel really free to, like, bring the clinical, the business, and the Christian aspect into the room.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Community is huge. And that I totally relate to that. I just finished a year-long mastermind that, it wasn't faith-based. It was amazing, but, I needed to rely on some other, relationships for folks who kind of get that sort of stuff. And, my
Mhm.
wife is a business owner too. So obviously I have that, but just being surrounded by other folks and entrepreneurs who bring faith into what they do. And I've been kind of just lucky and blessed that we have some great people at our church who are also business owners and entrepreneurs. So it's kind of naturally happened for me. So I'm just really thankful for that. But community is huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your community that you have been building, and where people can find out more about you and what you're doing.
Yeah, so my website, hopefully very easy to remember, whitneyowens.com.
Great.
It's spelled just like it sounds. And you can get all the information on the things I'm going to talk about on that page. If you do go to my website, you can grab a free PDF on tips to market and network with churches, because that's a huge part of building your business.
Hmm.
You even mentioned that about your wife and her
Yeah.
connections with churches. So you can grab that PDF and get on the email list. And I send out a weekly email usually. It's sometimes focused on business. Sometimes it's focused more on faith. Like, these two things go hand in hand, because God changes me through my business for sure.
Hmm.
And then I do host a membership community. We meet every week on Wednesdays, and we have different themes as the month goes on. So the first Wednesday of the month, we have what's called Wise Teaching, and that's me teaching a component of faith in your business. So, for example, next month, I'm going to be talking about different ways to market your faith-based practice. And then the second week, which I'll have to have you come in sometime next year for this, is Wise Advice, where I bring in an expert in the field and they can
Hmm.
give feedback, advice, and usually amazing discounts to the Wise Practice members.
Yeah.
And then the third week, it's a Q&A, and then the like open office hours. And then the last week, we do a work session. So we all come together on Zoom. We talk about what we're going to work on, and then we work on it, and then we come back, because a lot of times, I mean, you can probably attest to this too, it's just like, there's so many things, I don't focus and get really doing one thing. And so it's a great place for someone to come write a blog or get some feedback on a project or a policy in their practice. So we have those meetings, and then we do have an online membership community through Circle for questions, answers, get paperwork for your practice, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. I love the accountability and the resources and stuff that you're providing for people. I'm super, like I said at the beginning, I'm super excited for you and all that you're doing, just watching you grow and build just amazing resources for faith-based practice owners. So thanks so much for inspiring me. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And just to mention that you're going to be one of the sponsors at the Wise Practice Summit, which is going to be in
Yes.
October in Savannah. So you can also get that information on the website. But it's a summit for faith-based practice owners to grow their business and connect with other people. So I'm excited that you're going to be there. Hopefully, Liz is going to be able to join us.
TBD, TBD.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay.
see. Yeah, she fluctuates. She's like, maybe you should just go. Like, oh, maybe I should go too. Like, the kids are a big, what do we do with the kids? So we came to your amazing conference last year, and we brought the kids, which was fun, but it was also very challenging to have kids and kind of be in the both worlds of business and then parenting. So we're like, okay, we're definitely not doing that again. But are you going to come with me? So we'll see. But I'm super excited. I love Savannah. I haven't been to Savannah in probably about 3 or 4 years. So really excited just to hang out there.
Well, good. Well, we're happy to have you. Maybe I should have like a kids clubhouse because I've had a lot of people ask about bringing their kids. So
Yeah, that would be amazing. It could be like the deluxe package with childcare included for sure.
that's right. That's right.
All right, Whitney. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.